All right, welcome people who are filtering in. We will get started here shortly as I flip another page to take more notes with my paper, old school. Let's see, coming in now. Peggy, you're hitting all of our webinars today. Good to see you in multiple of them. Cindy, good to see you. It's fun to recognize names of people coming into webinars. We're gonna give another minute or two, see who all comes in, so we don't get started too soon. Real quick, David, how many did we have registered for this so I know when to get a feel for how many people will trickle in or not?
Let me check real quick.
All right. Well, why don't we start with introductions while we're waiting on that? And you can just message it to me, David, and we can see, get a feel. But so quick introductions. My name is Marcus. I think many of you know me. Don't know if everybody does, but one of the owners of Harmonize. I have with me David, who runs a lot of our subject-specific webinars. So he will get with instructors and co-present on how they're using Harmonize in some interesting way. I should probably do this in every webinar, but if anyone has an instructor or you yourself have something that you want to share, feel free to let us know. That is interesting, David. There got 26 people register and not 26 people in the room. Hopefully I didn't not configure a reminder on this one. Anyway, rolling in with it then. I also have with me Alex, who is a new face at Harmonize that many of you have not met yet. So Alex is our new instructional designer, former English teacher, and is now helping us with all sorts of things, instructional design, content related, etc. So the couple logistics things, throw your questions out in chat or throw your questions into the Q&A. If you have a question you'd rather ask in voice, you can just raise your hand and we will then click on the whole allow you to speak thing. We generally don't do that until you tell us you want to, because people come to webinars and don't expect to be listed in the attendee list type of thing. So you can do that if you'd like as well. We are recording this one, so we will get this one back up on the website, and David will handle getting the recording out to everyone as well. And is that all on the logistics side, David? I'll get into help docs and stuff eventually, but yeah. All right. So we're going to lead in. So the topics for today, not really talking about discussions today, which is odd for us, but there's a couple tools in Harmonize that a lot of people don't know about. They don't end up using, mainly because they don't know about them. And we're going to start with social annotations. And for this, I'm actually going to turn it over to Alex because she has taught composition and she has used social annotations and she is quite the cheerleader for them. So I was going to let her do an introduction of how she used them in the class, etc. Value that they brought, and then I will take over from there and come back into doing a walkthrough of how they work inside of Harmonize, how to add them to the class. Once we get through that, we will pivot over into polling to talk about how to use polling to increase readability, how to use polling in different ways inside your class as well. But that'll be the second part of the webinar. So without further ado, Alex, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Marcus. Yes, so I am a big fan of social annotation. I like the term social annotation too. Sometimes we say collaborative annotation, but there are a lot of platforms where you can collaboratively annotate a text together. The thing that makes it social in a platform like Harmonize is that students can reply to each other's annotations, and that does something really cool. It creates this ability to have a discussion in the margins of the text, a discussion that's really rooted in the text and that can stay really close to and true to the text without a lot of laborious, like, I want you to have X number of direct quotes and cite the page number. Everyone's on the same page without all of that laborious work. It's also really cool because it takes something that's normally so passive and forgotten, which is reading, and it turns it into itself an engagement activity. And so when I started using social annotation in my freshman composition classes to annotate essays, I saw reading rates go through the roof. I saw students come in with just a much better comprehension of the text. And I saw students really relating with one another and sort of relating the readings to their own experiences, just really great results. So I'm a big, big social annotation fan. And the cool thing with our social annotation platform. It works with PDFs. So, you know, anything that is a PDF or can be turned into a PDF, like say you have your syllabus as a Word document, you can turn it into a PDF and have your students annotate the syllabus together. Things with like websites, you can print them as PDFs and have students annotate the website together. So there are a lot of out of the box cool things you can do with it. And I think we're also covering polling today. I never had polling, but I always wanted to have polling. That's another great way to add some engagement. I complained about the lack of polling in Canvas and asked about that feature for a long time because, again, this is just something that you can use to create a little more engagement with your students. So I will throw it back to Marcus to give like more real details about how this all works, but that's my cheerleading pitch for these technologies.
Feel free to interrupt if other things come in that you want to add in, because obviously I have never taught English composition or done real-time PDF annotation stuff because teaching's too hard for me. So when we get into, I'm going to show PDF annotations. The two main players in this space, competitors of this tool, are Hypothesis and Perusal. So if you're familiar with those tools, that'll help anchor you to what it is that we're going to be showing you. Our tool is just simpler than those. They have a lot more powerful features, but our argument is that maybe those things aren't necessary if you're just really trying to get a PDF annotated. So let me jump into Canvas. I mean, actually, is put out in the chat like which LMS y'all are using, and I will, when I walk through the how do I add one of these to the class in a little bit. We will go into the different LMSs if some of them are represented here. There's not very many of us here today. So we will hopefully be able to stick in one LMS, but toss that out there and we will dive in. I only see 2 people tossed it out there, so hopefully everyone else is looking for the chat there. There they go. Canvas. Okay, all Canvas all the time. We're gonna start there. If you are not doing Canvas, let us know, and we will jump in and take a look at that. So first and foremost, I have a PDF. I've added it to my modules. I've added it as a graded assignment. We will jump into Moodle. Awesome. So here I have embedded into my modules, in this case, the budget of the United States government that I want people to actually read. It's a dry read, so I want them to actually interact with each other when they are doing the reading. Because I have created this PDF and this reading as an assignment, it has a due date, and like I said, it has points attached to it. So a little extra incentive to be able to actually know when I need to get the reading done, and the fact that there is a grade attached to it. When I click into this same view for students and instructors, it's going to force me to open it up in a new window because we want enough space to be able to put the PDF on one side of the screen and the annotations on the other side of the screen. I have the instructions collapsed, but just like with all of our harmonized tools, you can put whatever instructions you want at the top. In this case, I recorded a video and built an activity for my students to be able to participate in. So I'm not just saying read it and comment. I'm actually giving them some pointed instructions about what I want them to do when they're reading this. This would be open by default when the students come in as we go into this. Sarah asked a great question. This probably looks familiar to you because I did this with AI. This is not directly embedded into the configuration of the PDF, but I did actually jump over to one of our discussion tools, opened up the AI tool, and was like, this is what I'm trying to do, generate an activity for me. Oh, by the way, it's in a PDF type of thing. So I had to go back and forth a couple times with our discussion AI. It's on our roadmap to be able to add direct reading instructions type of things to this to be able to use the AI generator for that. First, we have to figure out what are some good strategies when you're doing social annotations to be able to build those. So it's not as straightforward as just copying what we do for discussions over. Having said that, I'm going to hide these instructions. At its root, PDF annotation, we can page through the different things I could drag with scroll bar and such, but the whole goal is to be able to have an annotation that has all of the different things highlighted that students care about. And they can click on any of these to see what is being said. So in this case, James has highlighted this and said, this is not really a pure budget document. The government of the United States, the budget of the United States government, it's not. It's more of a policy or politics statement. Alan responded saying that's a good point. And this is the basic concept we're after here, which is like anything in the document can be annotated to say hopefully something more thorough than I think this is a very important, but David and I often go back and forth on demo content to be able to respond to each other. And you can see this one has a ton of commentary in it. I could just march through if I'm really interested in what has been annotated. I can march through and it will highlight the different things that have been annotated, so I can jump around and see what those look like. And you'll also see that, all of these are text highlights and they're different colors depending on what the student has chosen. But there's also these pins here to where they can click on any of these pins for things that are not textual that they still want to annotate, so they can drop a pin on it and still leave a conversation and still have a whole sidebar conversation for them when we're jumping through here. So the whole goal is wherever you want to pause, back to Alex's point, wherever in the document that there's actually something that's relevant as you're reading through and scrolling through. This page intentionally left blank. You can come through and you simply just highlight something and say, okay, how about this here? I'm going to add a new comment. And now I am actually having a conversation embedded in the document. No need for line numbers, no need for et cetera. Any type of reference to what I'm doing, it is actually anchored to that point. These comments are mainly text-based. We're not doing full multimedia over here, although that is something that is listed on our roadmap of maybe some instructors want as you go through. But the idea is, write what you want and then publish it, and it just becomes another highlight for students to respond to. Other students can click on it and go ahead and reply. Once again, simple text replies as well to be able to have a conversation happening throughout the entire document. This particular one, well, actually, let me demo a couple more of the features here. Let me delete my reply here. I don't need another reply. When I am working on these particular things, I can always, edit my own here. The highlight color is settable by the students so that they can tweak whatever they want if they're trying to differentiate themselves from their fellow students in a different way, or if you've actually given them some instructions to say, hey, highlight things in green that you agree with, highlight things in red that you disagree with, although I would caution you with that to make sure that you also put agree or disagree in the comments, because color and colorblind people won't be able to fully recognize that. If the comments get too awful busy, let me delete this one. That's where this pin tool comes in. So this is not just good for can I comment on things that are not textual, but it's also good for perhaps voting on particular areas of the document that you find complicated. So you can have a sidebar conversation, but you also can come through and be like, where in this document is things starting to get real legit? Can drop a pin here, be like, I vote for this to be discussed in class. So you can have your students drop pins on areas where you think further discussion or further education could be warranted because it's getting perhaps too complicated. And I publish this. Because this is graded, you will actually be able to open this up in SpeedGrader and see a summary of what your students have done and attach a grade to it. We do not do our auto grading system in this yet, at least. It's also on the roadmap. We are in this phase of this PDF annotation tool where we really want to hear from instructors around what they find would be helpful to them as we go through. So keep that in mind as you start to use this, that we are actively soliciting feedback on what is the next thing that should be done to this tool. Couple other things that are in here, like let's say I'm on a page and it's getting so busy that I can't even read it. Too much Christmas tree. I can hide all the things to be able to come through and read in an undecorated fashion if I want to. And I can also just jump to the things that I have not read yet in this document to be able to see and pick up where new things are being discussed. All right. When I'm actually before I get into instructor view of like what does activity look like, how does SpeedGrader work with this type of thing, do I have any questions on the basic highlighting, navigation, etc. of the text here? Well, I'm waiting to see if there's any questions. Alex kind of highlighted it. We call this the PDF annotation tool. It does PDFs. Anything that you can turn into a PDF, you can do this. Some of the other tools, the Hypothesis and Perusals of the world, can do annotations of websites. They somehow go figure out how to turn that into a PDF and pull it in for into this, etc. So that they can annotate other things. You have to do the PDF annotation here for us. Megan, in terms of launching this from a student perspective, it's as simple as clicking in the module wherever it's added, or if it was in assignments, clicking in assignments, going here. And in a few minutes, I'll show you how to actually add one of these to your course so you can see what it looks like. So it forces me to open in a new window so that we can get the nice side-by-side view of things here. This does work on mobile. When you get onto mobile, we will actually turn off the pencil highlighting, because what we found in usability is trying to both scroll with your fingers on your phone and highlight text on your phone, rather difficult. So you can just drop pins on it if your students are using it in mobile, and they can drop pins and add commentary that way instead of trying to highlight the letters on a very small phone as they're getting into it all. All right, let's talk about activity and grading, and then we will add one of these to the course. So when I open up the activity view, I'll be able to get an overall view of which of my students have actually done top level annotations. 1, 2 here. How many have done replies? 1. Most of the things that were in that doc were highlighted by me. So you'll be able to see what your students have done here and be able to get a feel for it, as well as which ones are ready to grade because they've done something. So this person in particular, not ready to grade, nothing will be in SpeedGrader because Laverne has not done anything. However, I can jump around in these and click and see their individual details of what they've actually done. What is there? When were they last in? What is the actual due date? This due date is only changing if you decide to assign a different due date for students. It's just an easy way to remember, oh, I gave this student more time to be able to participate. Let me go ahead and open this guy up in SpeedGrader so you can see what that looks like. All right, so now we're in SpeedGrader. We will put the PDF annotation tool in here. I am defaulting to Edith. You can see for the summary, Edith has 1 annotation, 0 replies, and she has viewed 2 of the 32 annotations that are in here. So she hasn't read a whole lot of the doc. She just came in and did a bare minimum. I can assign a grade over here. I can go pick a student who's done perhaps a bit more. I don't remember which of my students have done more. Let me see, Nick. Nick has only done 0 annotations and 1 reply. So you can see we put Edith's thing that he replied to here, and then we highlighted Nick's name here. I'm going to make my window a little bit bigger so that, so that their names don't wrap quite so funky. There we go. So now I can see Nick's name, see the PDF. I can go ahead and jump to what it is that Nick has done. Let me see, I actually do that from this little menu here, view in document. It will take me to Edith's comments so I can see what Edith highlighted, what she said, and what Nick has said. And if you do have really busy annotations, and you just really want to zone in, like you read Edith, so you want to hide the other 70 comments. If there are that many, you can toggle this switch and it will turn off any other comments that were in line here. There was only 1 comment in line, so that was probably a pretty bad demo. But if there had been 2 other comments in here and I had them on, they would have appeared and I would have been able to read the full thread. But maybe Nick replied a few times in there and I want to be able to narrow into just Nick. I can do that here. The goal is to come through and assign grades for this. Note, like I said, we're not doing auto grading in this particular area yet to just say, oh, did they annotate something? Did they reply to their peers, etc. I can see that being one of the most commonly requested tools here as we're going through it all. Okay.
Hey, Marcus.
Yep.
We do have a question here. It's not on the grading, but there was a question about alt text that would be on the PDF. Does that carry over when you load it in? And would the students still be able to see that?
That's a great question. I don't think we modify the PDF at all, but I have never actually messed with alt text on images in PDFs. So Cynthia, if you have an example that you want to shoot our way, shoot it to us and we'll test it out and see what it actually looks like, because that's not something I have an answer for right now. Okay, you can attach rubrics to these. And be able to grade with a rubric. That is done via the Canvas standard attaching rubrics thing. We don't yet do the auto-generated rubrics for the PDF annotations yet, although be able to actually do that once we probably are generating, we would first prioritize generating the actual activities and the instructions, I would imagine, as well. So right now it's just a manual point grade for what you're doing, although you can attach, this is your standard SpeedGrader view, so you can attach a rubric over here and be able to actually assign that to the given assignment and then grade by clicking through the rubric as well. Okay, I don't know, I guess here's a question of how do you grade social annotations? And maybe Alex, I'll throw this one back to you. Did you end up doing grading of your social annotations in terms of how you did it other than just a raw activity grade of did they do the thing?
For me, I was just looking right now to see if I had preserved any of my old rubrics. I did grade on a rubric, and it was you know, part of it was completion based. Like, did you do the required number of annotations and replies. So I required a certain number of annotations and replies. For my assignments, I tended to ask them to post 3 annotations. One was like a agree or disagree and why, which I found to be really helpful for telling if they really understood the argument, because sometimes they'll be agreeing or disagreeing with something and it's like, that's not really what the text says. I would do a connection, like make a connection to another text or another subject or whatever, because the learning science says that we do better when we connect to new things we're learning with other things we know. And then I would also do ask a question, and I would have them try to ask a question of their peers, but I would say it's okay if it's really more toward me or toward the author, but I would actually want them to ask each other questions. And then they had options in replying, like you can extend somebody's connection or answer somebody's question. And so the grading was very much, did you do the things I asked you to do? And then also maybe some points for like, did you show some engagement with the text? Did you have a pretty accurate reading with text? Something like that. And so you know, you can imagine roughing something like that out with a rubric, but I don't think all social annotation assignments have to be quite that prescriptive. I just kind of knew what I wanted with it.
Awesome. Thank you. Glad your expertise is here, because I know how to highlight things in a PDF, and that's about it. So welcome aboard. All right. I did other questions for us in terms of how PDF annotations work before we go into how to actually add one of these to your course. Okay, let me go back into my course, and we will go add one of these from scratch. I think I clicked that, didn't I? There we go. Okay, so you have a couple options here. And once again, much like with most of our tools, you have to pick up front whether you want to do graded PDF annotations or ungraded. If I click this little plus, so let me just take a step back. I'm going to do this straight from the modules because students love things to be put in modules. I could go to the assignments and add an assignment if I wanted graded, but putting them in the modules here is a shortcut. So I go ahead and click this plus button. And if I don't want to do it as graded, I come into the external tool, I pick Harmonize, and one of the options, many options in this menu that Harmonize offers down at the bottom is going to be PDF annotations. So you can click on this and it will allow us to pick a PDF and upload it. I'm going to show you creating a graded one because there's a few extra steps that will then rejoin with this step here, so we can jump into that. So I'm going to close this out. If I'm doing a graded one, I need to create an assignment, as with most LTI tools. So it's create a placeholder in my gradebook to be able to do this. We're going to call it my PDF annotations. And I'm going to add that into my assignment, into my modules. So it's here in module 1. I need to go into that assignment and hook it up to the Harmonized PDF annotator. So I go ahead and click edit here. And just like with our discussions, we do 3 things. How many points do we want this to be worth? 10 points. Hook it up under submission type to external tool. When I do this, I have to go find Harmonize, which is I click the find button, it opens this up. Guessing you're going to have more tools than I do, you may have to make this box bigger so that you can scroll through this and you find Harmonize assignment here, and it's going to show you the 3 things that we can grade. We'll talk about polling in a moment. Discussions is an entirely different conversation, and we have PDF annotations. When I click PDF annotation, it's going to ask me to upload a single PDF. This is me as the instructor providing the PDF I want my students to annotate. I can add a file or drag and drop it. I'm going to add a file and go find, I'm going to annotate my vision plan, since I've just got old enough that now I actually need glasses to see my monitor well. Yay, old age. So a good example here of a thing that is confusing. I'm uploading it. We're going to talk about it as a class. I'm going to create that PDF annotation, and then I'm going to close the box by clicking select here. So now I've created a 10-point assignment hooked up to a PDF annotation of my vision plan. I should have probably grabbed a more academic text to work with. And you don't have to, but I suggest giving it a due date. That way your students actually get things done when you want them to. So I want you to do this reading by the 28th, so that when we get into either a Zoom session or an in-person class, or we are rolling into some other activity, you have done the reading by that point, and I can apply it. Save and publish if it's ready to go, or I can save if I want to jump into it and actually create some instructions. So when I save it now, I'm going to open it up in a new window so that it's here. It's going to drop me into my instructions screen so that I can tell my students what I want to do to start with. And this is where you could either jump straight to ChatGPT, or you could build your own activity, or you could go use our AI generator inside the discussion to sort of work through things. But this is where you tell your students what you want to do. And as with all tools, you can do video recording. You could be like, hey, everybody, here's, when you're reading this vision plan, it's really hard to understand, highlight anything that you think is complicated or you have questions on. You can also drop pins on areas you like to discuss in class, those types of things. You can do that type of recording. Standard harmonized editor here, right? So any type of recording you want to do, you can do. And then I'm going to publish these instructions. Those instructions stay at the top. I can hide them so that they're out of the way. And now I have my PDF ready to go, where I can drop pins on specific things and start to leave commentary around them. So pretty straightforward. It's really just create an assignment, upload the PDF, add whatever instructions you want, and then jump in and start working with things. This PDF will copy semester to semester. So if you build this out once, it's going to copy into your next semester. We will clear out all of the annotations that were made. So it's a fresh document for your next set of students to come into. So you don't have to worry about having to reset this up next semester or coming through and clearing out any annotations and such. Any questions for me on that basic creation process? Or any questions in general, because that's sort of the end of the PDF social annotation side of things.
Marcus, I'll share something just as maybe a warning. I tried one of the first times to create a PDF annotation as a demo in Canvas, and it wouldn't highlight for me. And I had to reach out to support, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? And there are sometimes you have to make sure your PDF documents are saved a certain way, or it will not allow for the highlighting portion. You can still drop pins, but you can't highlight. So sometimes you might want to check when you go in to make sure it can highlight before you send that out to your students.
This is a great point about PDFs. Make sure your PDF is accessible, that it has an OCR layer, that it actually has a text layer in it. Otherwise, screen readers will not be able to read it, and we won't be able to highlight text in it. We still allow you to drop pins on those types of documents. So if you do only have the document in non-OCR format and you do want to use it with your students, you can, but heavy note of caution in that that's not accessible. The screen readers won't be able to get at the content. As long as it has a text layer, screen readers will be able to read this as we're going through, so it'll be able to actually read the PDF to the students as well. So yeah, good point, David. Be careful with that and make sure that you have a text layer in your PDF documents if you're going to use them with your students.
Marcus, I was going to throw in one more cool use of this tool that I think works for a lot of people, regardless of what subject they're teaching. If you have any really complicated assignments or long assignments like research papers, and again, you might have those instructions in Word document form or something like that. If you turn those into a PDF, you can have your students annotate the instructions for the assignment as an activity itself and see a lot more engagement with and understanding of the assignment that way.
I'm curious, when you were working at the law school and you were doing legal briefs and reading legal documents, did your lawyers use PDF annotations?
No, because the PDF annotation at our school was not an enterprise tool and had to be paid for by students. So if this is a tool that is available to you at your school, you are very lucky. We always wished it were more widely available for us because it really is something that a lot of classes can get a lot of mileage out of.
Yeah, some use cases I've heard are for like research papers, legal briefs, things that are complicated to read or to be able to understand, having them actually jump in and being able to use social annotations to be like, why is this clause in this legal contract here? What does this even mean? Type of thing to be able to go back and forth.
Yeah, really anywhere that you want students paying close attention to the language of something, which is something we want in a lot of classes. It's going to be a useful tool.
I'm going to finish with one stat for you. There's this framework for interactive learning out of ASU called ICAP. And it's about how can you take what would be a passive activity and add in either activity or interactivity. And when you go all the way to adding interactivity into a learning lesson, they actually saw like an 8 to 10% increase in learning outcomes from the students because the activity was interactive. They were having social conversations inside of a reading. So it's not just about did they do the reading, it's also like how much of it did they comprehend. So what Alex was talking about, connecting points, is good as well. If you can drive them into interact in that document, their learning outcomes are higher. We do see it used in a purely active way as well, meaning like group note taking, so that you can send the students in and they can actually highlight the text and just take notes on it. And then there's no requirement for them to actually interact with each other. That is better than purely passive reading in a solo interface. So it's whatever level you want to do, but the more you can drive students to interact with something when they are consuming the content, the better.
Yeah, kind of on that note, another cool kind of way I use social annotation was I would do something called preceding the text, where if it was a particularly complicated text, I might go in and put some of my own annotations in before they came in. I might put in some of my own questions. And, again, they're asked to reply to questions as one of their possible response types. So then students would be coming in and answering my questions. You can sort of thread Socratic type questions throughout the text that get them thinking, or if there are just like confusing moments in the text, you can annotate those so that they don't go down the wrong path with those moments. It's almost like you can be there holding their hand a little bit where necessary or coaxing them as they're reading. It's a really cool thing to try.
I will put a note on that. When Alex came in, she's like, does it keep my instructor comments semester to semester? And I'm like, why? And she explained it. I'm like, oh no, doesn't do that. So if you do lace in 2 or 3 starter questions for them, you will have to do that over and over semester to semester. So keep those in an extra doc or go back and fetch them from the previous class and be able to anchor them. So not 100% perfect in terms of course copy there, but it was a use case I had not considered until Alex brought it to us. So it's now in the feature release roadmap, not roadmap, but in the actual what as you call it, our feature requests. It doesn't have very many votes though, because I think only Alex has voted for it so far. All right, I just wanted to show real quick in Moodle for the Moodle user out there. Like, I don't know, I think I'm in version 4.4 of Moodle, but basically, if you put your course in edit mode and you click plus, you're going to find a harmonize activity here, and this harmonize activity is going to let you select content where you can then pick the PDF annotation as one of your options here. So I can pick PDF annotation, create a new one, and it's going to do that same thing where it's asking me to name it, asking me to give it a file. Moodle's a little nicer than Canvas in terms of like you can pick graded or not graded right here and add point totals versus having to decide that before you get into things. From this point forward, it's the same for your students to be able to jump in. You put in instructions and that type of thing. So the only real difference for Moodle is the initial setup of how did I get to this screen. Okay. Last questions on PDF annotations before we talk about polling as another non-discussion based activity. Okay, so polling comes in 2 flavors, well, 3 flavors for us. I'm going to start with the simplest, move into some more interesting things, and then pivot over actually back into the discussion to talk about polling in the discussions as well. The most basic form of poll, I have one here in my initial module 1. I want my students to go read something, in this case, the syllabus, and I want them to answer some questions just to show that they actually hopefully read the syllabus. Poll questions don't have correct answers, but at least I can get the feel for were my students paying attention enough to answer in a way that I expected. So here I've created a syllabus poll. It's worth 5 points. I asked them to do it by March 28th. And when I come into that, I've already answered the first question. So it said, yeah, that's what 100% people say about my poll for using AI in the classroom. I asked a question about when my office hours are. You could do this with a quiz as well if you want, but this is polling just doesn't have right or wrong answers. It's anonymous type of thing. So you can answer. And when you answer, it's then going to show you the results of what everyone else in the class has answered as well, so that you can see what that looks like. You as the instructor have a couple extra options to be able to close the poll or download the poll results. But we basically stack our poll questions in here. We can do as many as we want. And this is sort of your vanilla poll. Like I'm asking some questions. There's no content mixed into this. It's just something that I've asked them to do. I could put some text block in there telling them I want them to go read the syllabus type of thing if I wanted. Basic stuff here. This one was graded. It was worth 5 points in my syllabus. in my module outline there, you probably saw. And what that means is as soon as I answer this, whatever I answer, I'm going to get 2.5 points. As soon as I answer this, whatever I answer, I'm going to get 2.5 points. If the due date passes and I haven't answered them, I'm going to get partial credit for whatever I have or have not answered. And that's the way grading on polls works. You don't have to manually come in and grade. It's done automatically for you. This pretty vanilla, pretty straightforward. Great way to just do quick comprehension checks of like, how's everybody feeling this week? Is this module going to be scary or not? Like, do you have additional questions? Whatever type of thing it is, to be able to just check the pulse of where your students are at. Where it gets a little more interesting is if I go ahead and mix those polls with some content. Because I'm going to open up one here where basically I have put a YouTube video in that I want my students to watch. And then I put a poll question, a couple poll questions right below it. Once again, I've already answered this one, so you can see that's what the students are thinking. Here's another question I put in place to be able to take a look at. If I want to let my students, they can skip and go straight to the results to be able to see what other people have answered. Those things are configurable. We'll show that in a moment. But now we're in this mode where like, really, this is graded. It's auto-graded, once again, because it's a poll. We're just going to grade it automatically based on them answering it. But if they watch this, well, there's a couple options here. They watch this and they come over and they answer in ways that you expect. You know, what tense were the speakers using? Could be a quiz question, could not, but it's really like, I just want to know, did you get it? Did you answer what I expected it to be? And there's a couple options, like the students either listen to it and all agreed, and therefore it was all fantastic, or they listened to it and they clicked something you didn't expect, in which case they didn't understand, or they didn't listen to it at all. They clicked something that you didn't expect. Either case of those last two, you know that the students haven't comprehended either because they did not watch and listen to, or they did not understand the content here as we're going on. Sarah, this was created as a poll, and then I added the video at the top of it. So I started by creating a poll, and I'll walk you through that process here shortly so you can see what that looks like. And I can mix this in multiple ways. And when I walk through setting up one of these, I'll show you, like I can do a YouTube video with 2 questions, add in this case, another video with another question below it that I recorded straight in line on some day when I was wearing a jacket where I must be fancy. So you can mix all kinds of content with poll questions and just sort of stack them in whatever way you want. All of these poll questions contribute to the same grade as we're going through, and I only haven't answered one of them. So right now I'm scoring a 66% on this particular poll because I've only answered 2 of the 3 poll questions. When we are setting these up, you can do them as graded or ungraded as well. It's always kind of the same starting point for us here, where if we're going to do a graded one, which I think is the more typical, we create a placeholder assignment and we're going to call it a listen and learn poll, or read and learn, or something along those lines. Any type of content we want them to consume and answer questions about. Can add this item here. Now, when I've done this, once again, same 3 steps. I'm going to go edit the assignment. I'm going to give it a point total. This is a 5-point poll we will do. I put it in my extra credit group. I'm going to hook it up to external tool to be able to find harmonize again, just like I did for the PDF annotation. Instead of picking PDF annotation this time, I'm going to pick poll. And then I'm going to close this out. So now I have hooked this 5-point assignment up to a harmonized poll, and I'm going to give it a due date for when I want the students who actually have read the content and finished the poll questions, and apply that here. Then I'm going to save. When I do this, it's going to drop me straight into a poll. It's going to create 1 poll question for me as the basis. And then I can add content around this. So I'm going to say, let's say, what am I going to do something on? Mountain biking. So like, how's the best way to corner on a mountain bike? That's difference of opinions there in different areas, etc. I'm going to be like, lean the bike and the body, separate the bike from the body. These are things you guys probably don't know about, but it's my hobby. So whatever type of thing I'm looking for. And then I'm like, you know what? I want a YouTube video to go along with that I'm wanting them to watch. So I'm going to go out to YouTube. Here's all of my videos. All of my videos are by default mountain bike videos. So I can come down here and I can be like, okay, I'm going to add a link in, and I'm going to paste this URL in here. And it's going to pull in that YouTube video for me to be able to preview. So, I mean, it is actually going to let me preview. wonder why YouTube isn't giving me previews today. That should have pulled in a preview. I'm not sure why it didn't. I'm gonna have to ask our support people if that's YouTube or us. But should have pulled in a preview there for us. And maybe I'll go grab a different URL and see if it's us or not. And then I can move that around. I could put that link above. Oh, now it pulled it in. I guess it was just taking a little bit of time. So it pulled in that video for me above. Now I have my poll question here below. I can add more than 2 options if I wanted, and I have ability to say, when can I show the results? I can only show the results after I've manually closed the poll or after they voted or the poll is closed. Either way, they'll be able to do that. Then I can use this little poll button here to add another poll question if they want. Or I could, kick on the video recorder or do screen share and do a little mini lecture, whatever type of thing I want to do. So I can be like, hey, now we're going to practice speaking in Spanish ourselves. And then I can, as instructor, can speak in Spanish for them to listen to a little bit. I guess I'm doing mountain biking versus Spanish, but fair enough. I could do whatever I want here. And then I can come down and add another poll below this as well. So I could add another poll question, ask a different question here, and continue to build my poll out in this way. Red, blue, green, etc. And then eventually publish this so it becomes all of those videos. Like there's the first video, there's the question, there's my second video, there's the questions as I'm going through this. One thing that I find a little confusing when I am doing this, I probably should have demoed this from the start. We did not build this to be a mixed content and poll. So we start you out with that one poll, and people are often like, no, first I need to find the content. And then they put the content in. It's like, great. And then they try to move the content above the poll. And the poll's like, hey, you can't move yet. You need to tell me what the poll question is. If you run into that, just keep in mind, like it's asking you to fill out the poll with the actual content before you move it around. It's something that we need to probably clean up and fix. But I've run into that a couple times where I'm like, first I'm thinking about the content and then I'm thinking about the poll. So I add the content, try to put it at the top, and then it complains at me that I have yet to fill out the body of the poll questions and such. So if you do that, just go ahead and fill out some sample questions into the poll, and it'll let you move things around until you really get settled. So the goal here is get my students to listen to this in whatever way I can by asking them a question. That is auto-graded, 5 points for this thing. So if they answer both of these, they're going to get 5 points, 2.5 per. And they will have to do that by the due date or they will get partial credit. And if I remember right, I did set a due date on this one, I think. Yeah, so listen and learn by August 30th, 5 points. And then when the students come in, once again, they're just going to watch the video and answer the poll questions. You can really set expectations for what you want your students to think about here as well, so that they can go ahead and watch this with intent as opposed to watching it and just consuming whatever it is that they wanted to do. And I see Alex actually dropped a couple links for how to create standalone polls into the chat for folks so that they can follow along with the written instructions of what I just walked through is there as well. Any questions for us on the polling or polling mixed with content, graded or not, space here before we roll into the final thing, which is polls inside of the discussions? Okay, so the final piece is I have a discussion I'm getting ready to kick off for for students. And before they really discuss things, I want them to consume some content before they dive into the discussion. So here's a case where I have an anatomy topic set up. There's a pretty complicated activity for them, and I want them to first watch this video before they dive into the activity. And you can see I have a poll configured that I've already answered here, but a poll about this YouTube video to be able to answer that as you're going through. So keep this in mind, and that this polling feature is available not just as standalone items in my assignments or modules, but within the discussion as well if I'm actually building out a discussion activity for them. The same editor that we use to build the poll over there is available here. And I saw an instructor recently from LACCD actually was every single one of her little intro videos, or even if it didn't have a video, if it was just a discussion topic, she would ask her students like, how was this discussion question? Was it interesting, mediocre, meh type of thing, so that she could get feedback from her students, not just about trying to get them to think, but giving her feedback as the instructor of like, is this something I should keep in my course next semester or not? And she said because it's anonymous, polling is anonymous, she was able to see the results. and actually get some honest feedback from her students about what was going on. And she would run those both in the discussions like this, and occasionally at the end of different modules, like how are you feeling about the class, those types of things, so that she had her pulse, her finger on the pulse of her students and what they were asking as well. And that is the last piece of polling. Any questions for us? And Alex or David, anything, other use cases for polling that I'm not mentioning here? I know, David, from your webinars, if some instructors have done it, or Alex from your wishes to have polls from your ID role?
One of my favorite assignments I've done for the subject-specific webinars was an instructor who was in communications, and this is kind of going outside of what we're talking about, but a feature that kind of gets overlooked is students can create their own polls. And so she was directing them to create a video as a intro to a speech, and then have the students create a poll to get feedback from the other students of what they thought of their speech, and ask options. Should I have started this with this type of intro, or should I went to another type of intro? So that option's available to the students, and it can be a fun activity for them.
That's pretty cool. I'd forgotten that was that. Well, anyway, I don't have to ask who it was, but yeah, pretty rock star stuff to be able to do that. So the students are actually having to think about building a question about what it is that they're actually doing as well as part of the assignment. Pretty awesome.
Well, one of the points she made that I think is really good is having the students create poll and give feedback. You want to talk about getting around AI. I mean, I don't know how you could have AI do that for you. I mean, that's pretty foolproof of.
Here, hold my beer.
Yeah. Yeah, not
yeah,
for you, but for most students. Yeah, that's going to be.
No, you're right. It is a great way to sort of have them sort of do some synthesis of the content to be able to pull it in and to do it in a way where they have had to actually think a little bit.
Yeah.
AI is getting more powerful every day, though. So the more you can push away from purely textual answers, the better, because it can bust out the essays and the responses pretty quickly. Can't yet do videos very well, although it's getting there quickly as well. So how do we stay ahead of the AI? And right now, it's stay away from text as much as you can. Also, just makes for a more engaging activity. Like if the students actually have to run polls and answer each other's polls, that's neat. It's different. It's something they don't normally see in a class, etc. As well. So thanks for that. Alex, did you have anything additional to add before we wrap up?
Did you want to talk at all about this? Might be more of a remnant of the COVID era, but did you want to talk at all about using polls to take attendance?
Yeah, we have some schools do that. Most schools aren't doing manual attendance taking, but some private for-profit schools are having to do that. And so you can actually have a weekly poll where it writes something to the grade book, and they are getting attendance for just showing up and logging in. So much like I created that syllabus poll here, that was just a simple series of questions. You can put one of these in every single week, and you can make it as an assignment and put it in the group in the grade book called attendance. And so if they are logging in every whatever amount of time it is, you can actually have them go ahead and take attendance that way. It really depends on what your university does from an attendance taking, but it is a way to encourage them to come in and participate, at least minorly. I often talked about in one of the ICAP webinars we did about that framework. It's like, how do you also kind of ramp students into engagement? And so this is a great way to sort of start them contributing, because they're very used to passively consuming content. And so if they start with a poll, they've now contributed something, and then they go from there, they maybe make a post, or maybe they can move into critique and stuff like that. But like, you could start them out with just a series of simple poll questions that are low stakes. Whatever answer you give, it's going to get points. You don't have to worry about correctness on the quiz, etc. And start to getting them into the habit of actually responding as you're going through. Same thing happens with the PDF annotation. It's a great way to just be like, take some notes to start with. Ask any questions you have there and see what questions your classmates have. So instead of having those come in a Q&A forum or having those come in a discussion, they come in the reading. Even though you're not requiring it, maybe you're not grading it, they're starting to see each other interact. and the students who are a little more interested can actually participate with each other so that we're starting to break that ice and form some of that peer connectivity as you're ramping it up through the class until by the end, maybe they're doing full video critique with timestamp commentary and using rubrics to assess each other's work, who knows? But that's the goal, is kind of how do you kind of step them into that slowly.
I had one more application that may or may not be applicable for folks here. I imagine most folks are teaching online, but if you ever do teach in-person classes, one thing I encountered working with faculty members was some folks, you know, as hard as COVID teaching was, some people really got into the polling feature that's in Zoom, and then they went back to live classes and they wished they had something like that. And if you use the polls in Canvas, that can be a way for you to get that polling going in your live classes.
Yeah, this works
Whether
in the
they're on
Canvas.
Zoom or in person, although Zoom has its own polling.
Yeah, I mean, they could do it from Canvas student app for sure. They could open up their phones and because they're logged in, they can navigate to it and vote. And then you as the instructor just have to reload once everybody's votes are in. We don't do live refresh here. That would be the only in-person thing. You'd want to reload it and then see the results, put them up on a screen share or something, and be able to talk through what those results look like. So yeah, you could definitely incorporate this into in-person classes as well. Similar to what Poll Everywhere, Poll Anywhere, Poll whatever, the product out there does. Similar sort of thing. Just added, it's not quite as sexy because you actually have to reload the screen to see it. I would see the only negative there. All right. Having said all that, go have fun. Enjoy. We will be sending out the recording of this mumble sometime soon. I would say by the end of the week, probably. It seem fair, David, by the end of the week.
Fingers crossed, yes.
Fingers crossed, and we'll share it out with whoever you want, and we'll send it along. So go have fun. Let us know how it goes. In particular, when you start pushing these features, like Harmonize started as a discussion platform, we're adding these other things. Let us know what you would like in them, because we're actively trying to think about what other tools do instructors need. And this is an area where, polling, what do you need more? PDF, annotations, what do you need more? What do you want more from them to make it easier to be able to get them into your class, build those activities, auto grade them, whatever it is. How can you actually manage that? So feedback always welcome, as usual. All right, take care, everybody. I see Robin posted a question right before I left. Are the previous sessions from this week posted? I don't know, David, are they up yet? Did the guy on the website respond yet?
Not yet. And I was just thinking what I may do just to get these out is I may upload it to YouTube and then just send out the link to the YouTube link and then
that makes sense. Yeah.
Go from there. So if we don't have it, we'll get all the sessions out there by tomorrow in one way or another.
Yeah, Robin. So if you have registered for those, we will send along the recordings. If not, they will be up on the website in the events section of our website, which I will drop that link into the chat real quick. So you can see every webinar that we do, we post up there. The only reason they're not up there yet is that something got upgraded on our website and we went to embed the videos and it didn't work. And David figured that out yesterday. And so we messaged our developer on that front and they're fixing it for us. But the recordings for all of our webinars stay up on this website forever. So you can go through and see, like for example, the communications webinar David was talking about. That one's pretty fascinating. Upcoming webinars are there as well. And the recordings from this week will be added as soon as we can get them up on the website. Awesome. All right. Have fun, everybody. Take care.